Welcome to this video. In the previous videos, we talked about Metasploit framework and we discussed some of its modules. Let's talk more about the framework. So to open this Metasploit framework, Msfconsole, and it's taking some time because this is the first time we are starting this console. As you can see, starting the Metasploit framework console. So with what you can see here, the version of Metasploit, we have 2519 exploits, 1296 auxiliary, 431 ports, 1609 payloads, 49 encoders, 13 knobs, and 9 evasions. So here it says press enter to size up the situation, then press space bar to continue. So since we are new here, do help like we've done in previous videos. So this will enable us go through and see some of the things that are possible with this Metasploit framework. So what we do next is to show the payloads. So we can say show payload. Okay, an error there. All right, this is not formatted where I want it. You can see the numbers are in between. So I'm going to do is what I want to do is to reduce my font size. And I'm going to clear the screen. And I'm going to try again. Still not what I want. I will go down here and reduce it further. And I'll clear again. Now one final reduction. I'm doing this so that you will understand this better. So here we have different kinds of payload. If we go down here, you will see we have Android payload, and we also have Apple payload here. And if you go further, we have that of Linux. And if you go down a little more, you're going to see the Windows payload. So this place contains all the payloads we can use. Now, when you come over to this side of the screen, that is where we have the description. So it is here. So if I go over or move down to Windows, for example, this, it means Windows command shell IPv6 bind TCP stager can use this payload to exploit a Windows system. So it means I can use this if I want to attack a Windows device. So we can decide to do the same thing for exploit. So we see you have 2518 exploits, and in the same way we have the exploit and we have the description of what it can do. So here is the name of the exploit and this is the description. So we also have Android browser, Samsung, this, and this is the description here, and this is the disclosure date, and have the rank. This one says excellent. So enough of all this explanation. Let me go ahead and show you how to use this exploit. But before I do that, I want to increase the size of this. I want to move it to 14. Okay. In learning how to use this exploit, let's go down here to where we have Windows. So for example, let's see how to use a random one. Let's pick this one. For example, what I want to do is to copy this, then go down, and I'm going to type use, and I want to paste that exploit, and I'll hit enter. So you can see that this says no payload configured, defaulting to Windows Metasploit reverse TCP. So this shows that we are using the module we selected. That's why it's printed out in red, and of course this shows it's an exploit. So the next thing we can do is to show options. We want to see more details about this, so we're going to say show options. Oh, but before we show options, let's talk about show info. So here is a description. This module exploits a memory corruption flaw in Internet Explorer. This flaw was found in the wild and was a key component of the Operation Aurora attack that led to the compromise of a number of high-profile companies. The exploit code is a direct port of the public sample published to the Vaporware malware analysis site. The technique used by this module is currently identical to the public sample. As such, only Internet Explorer CIS can be reliably exploited. Okay, so this reference also gives you the link where you can read more about this module. So from here, we'd like to check the next option, which is show options. So here is the module options. This is the name, and under this required, you will see that this first one is a yes, which means it's required, and also this is required, but these are not required. So the module you choose can have different requirements, and under this description you can read more to find out about this and whatever name you have under this column. Now under the payload options, we have the Windows Metasploit reverse TCP. Also under required, everything here is required. So on the L host, this is an IP address, and the L port, we have a default port. And if you go under the description, this L port 444 is the listing port. Remember that when we have a reverse TCP, it means we're going to be listening, and we're going to be doing that using this port. So this L host is the listing address. An interface may be specified, and for this exit function, description says exit technique accepted, SSH, thread, process, and none. So this is that for this module. We're going to go out of this and we're going to choose another module. So here I will have to exit. I'll clear the screen. then Msfconsole, then I will say show exploit. Then I'm going to be working with Windows exploit, so I have to scroll up. So let's try this random one. So I copy that, so I say use, and I'm going to paste, enter. So let me clear the screen. Like always, you can say show info. This is the description about the module, and it says this module exploits a stack buffer overflow in the LSASS service. This vulnerability was originally found by EEYE when exploiting a Windows XP system. You will need to run this module twice. Alright, so reference, you can click on this to check the reference. Then an important thing here is this: required is yes, but current setting is blank. Then for the R port, it's set to 445 by default, and it's also required. So let's head over to show option. Show options. So this is where we select the options for this module. So it's divided into two: the module options and the payload options. This one is asking us for two different things. As you see here, required, we have yes and yes, but different exploits we ask for different requirements. So usually you ask for the R host and the R port, and the R here stands for remote host and the remote port. So but for this our case, this is usually the target host and the target port, and the target port here is 445. So in this situation now, our remote port is set, but our remote host is not set. So we're going to learn how to set it in a short while. If we are to attack a Windows machine, we're going to specify the IP address of that machine here. Then in most cases, under required, you see we have yes and yes. That means the remote host and the remote port are all required. In some exploits, they may not be required. So down here is the payload options. Remember, after exploiting our target, we drop our payload. When we run this Windows exploit, it gave us this option by default. And remember, this is a Metasploit, and the reverse TCP is what we're going to use to listen to the connection. This can be changed as well. We're going to see that later. Down here is the settings for our payload, and remember, once we are using a reverse shell, we must set up this to listen using Arca Linux for the incoming connection. Now the L host is the IP address of Arca Linux, where we'll be listening to the incoming connection, while the L port is the default port that is set already. We can also set this if we want to. So you can see under description, the L host is the listing address, while the L port is the listen port. So we can check if this IP address is correct. And how do we do that? ifconfig. So as you can see, we have 198.128. So this is going to be set by default, but in case it's not, you can also set it. And the L port is the Kali Linux port where we're going to be listening to the incoming connection. It's usually set by default to port 444. Of course, we can also change this if we wish to do that. If for any reason we discover that this IP address, which is the L host, is set incorrectly, we can also set it to something different. So what I will do is I will say set, then I'm going to pick the name of this, which is the L host, and I'm going to type it the way it is, L host. Then I'm going to put in a different IP address which I want to set it to. In this case, I can say 130. So I'll hit enter, and what this shows is that lhost is now set to this IP address. And if I say show options again, you can see that we have set the lhost from 128 to 130, but this is not the real IP address of our Kali Linux machine. So I'm going to return it to the real IP address, which is 128 here. And if I say show options again, so we are back to the original IP address of Kali Linux. Assuming we want to set our target IP address here, so we're going to use the same method. We're going to say set, and we're going to use this name here, rhost. So I say set, then rhost. Then I'm going to impute whatever IP address of my target. For example, I can say 192.168.198.20. Then if I say show options again, you can see the rhost has been set to our target IP address. If you want to change this, you say set rport, then you put the port you want to use here. As long as this required is yes and yes here, it means you're going to have something here and you're going to have the port as well. If you leave it vacant, this is not going to work. So if you can see now, everything here is yes and we have all. Everything here is yes, we have all. So the next thing is you can try to change this payload option from what you have here to another thing, but this is the default one, and most times this default one is the best. But for any reason you want to change it, this is how to do that. So in that case, for you to see all the payloads you can use for this particular kind of exploit, all you need to do is just type show payloads. So if you look clearly, you can see that we have just 209 payloads that we can use for this just particular exploit. But this 209 is only usable with this exploit we have here. So for instance, you don't want to use the reverse shell, you want to use a bind shell. So all you do is just copy this payload and go down and set payload. Then you're going to paste what you copied and hit enter. and you say show options, and you can see we have changed the reverse shell to a bind shell. That is simply how to do these options. And by doing this, changing from the reverse shell to a bind shell, you see that we have some changes here. Now the remote host is no longer required, and if you take a good look, this one now is the same thing as this. Now what we want to achieve by all this is that you can set anything here by using set, then the name. For example, if you want to change this L port, you say set L port, then you can put the number of ports, and here it says L port is now 5555. So when you say show options, this is the L port now 5555. If you look down here, we have exploit target. This exploit target is all the available target for this exploit, and we can list all of them out by saying show targets. So this is the list of targets you can exploit using this attack. Here we have automatic targeting, Windows 2000 English, Windows XP English. So if you know the Windows the target is running, you can select it right here by saying set target. Then if it's Windows XP English, you have to choose 2. Okay, there's a mistake there. Set target 2, and you can see the target is set to 2. But in case you don't know the Windows the target is running, you can leave it on automatic, and which is automatic targeting, which is 0. So you can change this to 0, and that has been set to 0. So when you say show options, we have it set back to 0. And to count everything, if the target you're trying to attack is not any of this, that means this exploit will not work. For example, if you're trying to target Windows 8, this is not gonna work. So at the end of everything, you just say exploit. So why this didn't work is because we don't have a vulnerable machine in our network. But this demonstration shows you how to carry out this exploit when you have a vulnerable machine. Again, this IP address you see here is not online. So that is all for this video. In the next video, we're going to use what we've learned here to exploit our first vulnerable machine, which is the Metasploit table. So see you on that video.